Hello and welcome to day 21 of 365 days towards racial change. My name is Tomlins Nyback. Welcome. If you're new to the conversation, we're going to get right into it because it's the 21st of January, pretty significant day. As we'll get into as the program continues, we're going to update you on uh, where our information is coming from, what we're doing here. We're talking about black issues as they relate to America, and we are informed by a man by the name of Dr. Claude Anderson. He's written a couple good works. I'm almost done the third book of his. First book I read of his was A Black History Reader, 101 Questions You Never Thought to Ask. I read Black Labor and White Wealth, Search for Power and Economic Justice in America, and I'm almost done his book, Powernomics, National Plan to Empower Black America. I want to let you know this conversation, these materials that I wrote are at this point over a decade old, but the it's relevant to the community in which I live and circulate, and it's also the information's timeless. Because we're talking about slavery, we're talking about black life in America and how racism, social constructs, and we talked about a lot of things up to this point for 21 straight days. We almost got a habit going here, so let's keep up the good work. Another work we're going to get into is Uncle Tom's Cabin by Harriet Beecher Stowe, female white abolitionist back in the mid 1800s. Going to look at how literature impacts and informs um, America, just as those other works do. And we'll find that from time to time I'll go over a chapter in that and see how some of the black stereotypes um, found a lot of roots in her work. You can think about any um, work of literature, especially that makes us consider and think about um, how life was, and it kind of relates to life today. Think about the Bible and all the movies that come from that, and there's a lot of other um, ideas that come from that great literary work. If you just look at it as a piece of literature, we're doing the same thing with her work. We'll look at those characters in her book and slavery, white wealth, privilege, and power, and talk about them, see how they relate, see if they're still relevant today. And finally, behind me, I keep forgetting this, is probably because it's right behind me. Hashtag us too. Check out that community and um, get in on the conversation. It's a black community, and there's a lot of others out there as well. Okay, we're going to get right into it because it being January 21st, the 21st day, I'm committed to 365 days of information and wrangling and rambling, and ranting and exposing, empowering, educating for this year on black issues. We're obviously going to talk about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. His birthday was actually on the 20th of January, but his birthday is now a national holiday, so we celebrate it on the 21st. Not a whole lot's changed. It's not like Christmas or Easter. It'd be nice if it was. Blacks don't have a very demonstrative holiday. We blacks don't have a 4th of July with fireworks and businesses, banks closing, right? Maybe um, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday may become that, but um, right now, at least it's on the calendar, and there's probably a lot of movies. After I get done here, I'll click on the TV and probably find something about Medgar Evans, Malcolm X. Um, liable to see something about JFK. All the assassinations, Gandhi's. Could see some material media about Gandhi. You know what I mean. All right, but today's the day we celebrated, so I'd be totally remiss if I didn't pay some respects to him and the movement and the legacy, his blood, sacrifice. 60s was not a good time to be exposing truth about America. You're putting a target on your head or neck or chest. You're inviting some violent opposition, deadly opposition, by exposing the truth about America. Fortunately, the community was whipped up. Fortunately, we had TV and television back then. It would not have been, the whole thing would have not have been as successful if the whole American and the world community had not seen the dogs attacking people, the people, blacks, especially hanging from trees, the lynchings, the fire hoses, the beatings, and things. These were images on television, and it was also a time where America as a nation or the world found out, how powerful media could be, how powerful images could be. It was already, something in print, but it would not have, the whole civil rights movement, social integration would not have been as powerful if it was just, circulated media, print that occasionally came across people's minds and doorsteps. But television was big, and more people had television and radios and stuff, so they could see and hear some truths that were happening. It's great even today, 21st century. We've got our cell phones. Everybody's got a camera now. Nothing goes. We don't need 1984's Big Brother to be on a campaign to be invasive in people's lives. Everyone's got a phone. We're doing Big Brother's work for him. If you'd have to read the book 1984 if you don't know what I'm talking about, Big Brother and such. So yeah, there's Dr. King. He was assassinated April 4th, 1968, a few months after I was born. I don't have a whole lot of recollection of that. Things were dying down. My awareness was probably kicking in the late 1969, 1970s, when my mind started to comprehend the world. So some of the heyday of the movement had passed, and now the country was kind of trying to get along and get past some of that blood and violence, riots of those tumultuous years. So now, while I give homage and I give all respect to him and all the other supporters of civil rights, social integration, we can reflect though and see, what was it? Was it successful? Was it powerful? Were there any changes to it? One thing I know, and this is before I read Dr. Anderson's work, is that whatever the goal was, I know that today you can't make a law to legislate people's hearts to do something, to be in a certain uh, disposition. You know. So we had to make specific laws to make overt racism illegal, but it didn't change the heart and the nature of white and black life in America. It put it underground, and it doesn't show its head explicitly in the world and in the nation, because it's still there. I've been a victim of it. Now that I recognize the relations, now that I recognize how I'm excluded, how I am marginalized, um, now that I've been educated to understand uh, that as a black man, I'm not supposed to be powerful in a white nation that prides itself on its own white power. You know, these things are still real and happening. Not only that, other groups are coming in and supplanting blacks. They're using um, elements of the civil rights movement, and they came along even back then uh, as to embrace and come along with blacks. But once they got their kind of recognition and laws changed, that they had a few martyrs. Speaking, specifically LGBT, women might have some, and immigrants. Sure, immigrants. I'm sure the Chinese, Japanese, Hispanics have plenty, but it's the blacks that did the majority of the grunt work, right? And Dr. Anderson, there's a portion in his book he talks about how these other our black leaders, in their effort to be so inclusive, embraced a lot of groups, and he embraced a lot of the groups that came along and supplanted black folks. I stood behind a Hispanic man at a grocery store one time. He was trying to lay a wrap on a black woman. He didn't know I was standing behind him, and he says, he's saying his spiel and stuff, and part of his uh, spiel was that he was not black. He told her, I'm not black, you know, in a way to give him more credibility than a black man. So these groups are real, and they're out to supplant us. Um, so that's one aspect. Let's look. Some of my angst is that the United States went out of its way to, still goes out of its way to assist everybody but black folks. Black folks we've not gotten our reparations, we've not gotten our considerations. We're still barred from access, from upward mobility, from vertical integration and ethno-aggregation. Those are terms I got to get to defining those. Just means moving freely up and down the economic ladder and the resources of America through ethno-aggregation means pooling our resources, just as the Asians, Hispanics, and whites do, with keeping our money, especially our disposable income, within the black community. That needs a lot of massaging and a lot of effort. I personally am not plugged in, but I think some blacks are making it happen. But just a little list of America's involvement in some of the groups through history, through time. White indentured servants. This is from Powernomics, page 206. White indentured servants got freedom dues. There used to be. Now this goes way back to indentured servitude and things like that, making a contract. It wasn't slavery. They were indentured servants. They had a contract. You know, but they got freedom dues. Southern slaveholders got monetary reparations and billions of acres of land. They needed. What I'm talking about is this economic rescue and restructure after the United States um, makes some big move, or after a war. Um, we gave Japan billions of dollars in something called the Point Four program. Germany got billions in the Marshall Plan, and Japanese Americans in compensation for their internment, billions of dollars. American Indians, Native Americans, billions of dollars, land, cash, payments up and down I-25 in the southwestern part of the United States. They've got casinos up and down that stretch of road. Even cigarette smokers got billions in damages once we found out that um, tobacco was purposely making cigarettes addictive. Um, so we need to blacks just need to really become sensitive to that, to what's going on, what we're not getting. We got a lot of symbols. I was just cruising um, the internet and getting information on Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and all these white statues. I mean, if some visitors come and say, okay, these statues are obviously prominent humans on the earth, okay, I get the white thing, but this white statue, the nose is a little different. The hair is tighter and shorter. What's up with this guy, right? Because it's not an accurate representation. You We can look at history, uh, look at sports. Blacks are consistently superior. You know, how we wound up on the bottom, I don't understand sometimes. Right. Um, so I wanted to dovetail that with today's question out of a Black History Reader as well. Question number 3 today: how has social integration failed Black America? And I already stated some of the things. We still are burdened with economic, social, pathological impacts that resulted from historical maltreatment, is what Dr. Anderson states. Now, we're still overrepresented in incarceration in the prison system. Um, we're getting hooked on drugs. You dangle some kind of addiction or vice in the Black community, and for some reason, blacks go. Well, I shouldn't say for some reason, but blacks go off in there. But blacks bear a heavy responsibility and just stress and pressure of family. Resources, everything's tight. And there's no wiggle room, no movement. Our money goes out and it's spent with groups that hate us. Or we got huge stores. Oh boy, it's great. We got Walmart, Walgreens, but everything's from China, and China doesn't like black folks. Asians don't they don't converse with black folks. They don't reciprocate uh, economic stimulation from black folks. I mean, these are facts too. They don't hire black folks. So let's be, accurate in our assessment. I challenge you, and I challenge myself. Yes, I go to Walmart because that's all there is, but I'm at least sensitive to where my disposable dollars are going. Now that I'm into this information, my mind's being blown, and I get offended, and like that. But that's a start. They've got to start somewhere. You know, as black alternatives uh, become available that have to make me comfortable and present a quality alternative, yeah, then I'll slide on over. But they don't; those things don't exist in abundance just yet. They're coming though. We need to take some lessons from the Jews and see how when they before their little Holocaust in Germany and then World War II and that sad story, they recognized the handwriting on the wall, and they closed ranks, and they got into their group. Even though they were pushed into the ghettos. Ghetto comes from that activity, putting Jews together in a space. That's ghetto is a Jewish term, but they made their economies work. Um, and a powerful nation came in, murdered them, swept them away, and all that. But they snapped back. They kept that unity. I think well, they kept that unity. Um, the powers that controlled the Jews didn't learn from American slavery on how to keep a people or a group divided. They allowed the Jews to stay together. That was one of their downfalls. And America came in and did some rescuing there. Um, our young black generation has no clue. I'd sit back sometimes and feel like, oh boy, like even before this information came to me, I was like, oh man, oh, I'm so, secure in America, you know. Yet, occasionally, every few years, I get these, I'm going to say, I'd be bitten by white, powerful America, and I wouldn't even know it was a bite. I'm encountering resistance. I'm um, made to feel like I need to be soft and like a castrated black male, you know, made to feel like my say was um, appreciated, but um, no matter how right I may have been about an issue, it still fell on the white shoulders to um, make the hard and tough decisions. You black man, take it easy. Right? That's the attitude I'll run into in my past. Now though, I think I can see it coming. All right, but our young blacks don't. Like, not a whole lot of young blacks are running towards understanding the relationship between blacks and whites in America. It's not like on Good Times when little Michael was such a like a black militant. He was just Black Panther material, that type of thing in a black youth. I don't see that anywhere in today's America. Um, being displaced by immigrants. The Hispanics don't want to be identified with blacks. None of these groups, these so-called out groups that are struggling and competing with blacks, immigrants, LGBT, groups like that, didn't go through slavery, Jim Crow, and all that stuff um, to get where they're at. And blacks oh, it's like we want a big happy family. We want to embrace and be so open when that just doesn't work. Time and time again, when we open the doors and try to associate and bring other groups along, it's like we're trying to have this big unified, colorblind, unified, um, united front. So everybody rises up. It doesn't work. Right? That's one of the weaknesses of civil rights movement, Dr. King's message and all that. That was just kind of a wake up and awareness call, but actually moving away the issues with resources and wealth, that didn't happen at all. Um, in the process, and this happened even before the 60s civil rights movements, blacks gave up their communities, businesses, sports teams we had, and all that. You know, so while we name King among the great martyrs of the world of history, um, Jesus, Gandhi, Medgar Evers, Malcolm X, I'm sure you could throw plenty of names of martyrs in there. I would think of John Brown as well. Um, the message was just the beginning. I want to encourage you and have you remember and think about that Dr. King's dream and some of his speeches. He talks about the mountain and going to the mountain and not, maybe he won't get there with us and things. Remember, he talked about a mountain, okay? He didn't talk about a little hill or a little speed bump in the social structure of America. He talked about a mountain, and it's bigger than we think it is. The biggest problem I see with overcoming the mountain is that we will never legislate a condition of man's heart. We don't have that power. We can only put up signs, and we can only put up little laws in employment guidelines and in law enforcement and whatnot. But it does not change the heart of that individual employing those resources. It's not bringing about the necessary change in the consciousness and attitude to be equal and fair with blackness, to do right um, by all people. Blacks have to do this as a group. Dr. Anderson says it many times. How the blacks are going to have to come together as a group, as a united front in politics, economics, and then once we start moving consistently together, we'll be taken seriously. Um, we might not change the heart, but just through the legislation of the country, we can use that um, together and bring about the changes we need. But still, until we start moving like the Asians, Hispanics, collectively as the whites, we're not going to go too far. I'm Tom Linsnide. That's day 21, celebration of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday, which was actually yesterday. Don't forget that. And we'll see you tomorrow. Thank you.